You know, an origin story is everything for a hero, right? It's their foundation. But what if that foundation is, well, a complete mess? Built on lies, on memories of a world that's literally falling apart? That's what we're digging into today. We're going deep on Vampirella's true origin to figure out what's really going on with her dying world.
So who is Vampirella? Seems like a pretty easy question, right? And if you've been a fan for a while, you're probably nodding along, thinking you've got this one in the bag. But, and this is a big but, her story isn't just a simple case of a few retcons here and there. Oh no, it's been intentionally twisted into this masterpiece of chaos.
For the longest time, we all knew the story, didn't we? She's this tragic alien refugee, the last of her kind from a planet called Draculon. You know, the one with rivers of blood. Her world was dying, so she fled to Earth. It's a classic, straightforward sci-fi origin, but that's just the cover story.
And this is where everything gets turned on its head. What if Draculon isn't a planet at all? I mean, what if that whole alien from another galaxy thing was a lie? What if her home was way closer and a whole lot weirder? Okay, so let's get into it. Her real home, it's a place called Arcadia. And this isn't just swapping one planet name for another. This changes everything. She's not a sci-fi space traveler anymore. She's a refugee from a dying dimension. All right, get ready for this. The big secret is that Draculon is not some distant planet in another solar system. It's actually an alternate version of our moon. Yeah, our moon. It exists in this twilight dimension, Arcadia. So all this time, her home wasn't light years away. It's been right there, hanging in the sky, just in another reality. So what is this place, Arcadia, really? Well, imagine a dimension where the rules just don't apply. Physics, theology. It's all totally fluid, constantly shifting. It's this wild, magical place that was run by her mother, Lilith. And here's the kicker. When Vampy left for Earth, the whole place was in what they call a dying state. And dying state? What does that even mean? We're not just talking about, a planet running out of resources. This was way bigger. It was a complete breakdown, both physically and metaphysically. The very fabric of her reality was coming apart at the seams, and that is why she had to leave. That's the real start of her story.
But here's the thing. You can't just pack your bags and leave a dying dimension, right? You can't just outrun your past when your past is a collapsing reality. A piece of that world, a literal echo of its death, actually followed her here, to Earth.
This is where her origin story stops being a backstory and becomes a real, immediate threat. A piece of Arcadia, they call it its geopsychic core, basically the living soul of that dead dimension, it crash lands on Earth. And what does it do? It bonds with her. This thing, this stone, it wants to bring its world back to life by eating ours. The only way she can stop it is to control it, to master its necrogravity energies. She literally has to become a living anchor for a dead world. Her past isn't just a bunch of bad memories. It's a parasite.
And you know what's wild? The chaos of her collapsing home is a perfect mirror for the chaos that was being created inside her own head. The threat wasn't just external, it was internal too.
Turns out, her own mother, Lilith, was basically the chaotic writer of her entire life. She used something called a magic mirror to just stuff Vampirella's head full of contradictory memories. One day she'd wake up thinking she was an alien from Draculon. The next, she'd remember being a demon from biblical lore. And none of this wasn't an accident. It was all a calculated way to manipulate and control her, to traumatize her.
So, to break out of that nightmare, she needed help, a different kind of mentor. And you can see a huge difference between the two big influences in her life. You've got Lilith, the writer, who's all about forcing fake stories on her to keep her under control, and then you have Sophia, the interpreter. Sophia doesn't show up and say, here's the real story. Instead, she gives Vampirella the tools to make sense of the chaos herself.
And the main tool Sophia hands her is actually a philosophy. It's called the Dionysian spirit, and it comes from Nietzsche. The basic idea is, stop fighting it. Stop driving yourself crazy trying to find the one true origin story. Instead, just accept it all. Accept the contradictions, the absurdity, the chaos. Embrace it as the truth of who you are. And that's the moment she starts turning this massive weakness into her biggest strength. This change in mindset is what leads to her ultimate transformation. She finally stops being just a character in her mother's twisted story, and she starts writing her own, forging a whole new reality for herself out of all those broken pieces.
But before she can get there, she has to face down two really destructive paths, represented by two big bads. First, there's the Continuist, who is basically chaos incarnate. He wants to just dump infinite, contradictory stories into reality until nothing means anything anymore. Then you've got Vrildox, who's the complete opposite, pure, rigid order. His plan is to gather up all knowledge and then destroy everything else, trimming reality down to one, single, unchanging truth.
She looks at both of them and says, nope. She's not going to get lost in total meaningless chaos, but she's also not going to be trapped in a box of absolute order. She carves out her own way, a third path. She decides to become the author of her own chaos.
This brings her to what's called the self-begotten state. It's awesome. She takes all those fractured fake memories and turns them into weapons. She starts operating on a closed causal circuit, which is a fancy way of saying she defines herself from the inside out. This makes her totally immune to being manipulated. Nobody can retcon her, rewrite her history, ever again. It's impossible. She is, for real, the one and only author of her own story.
And this quote just nails it. She becomes the Übermensch, the overhuman that Nietzsche talked about. She's not agonizing over who she really is anymore. In fact, she just laughs at the whole idea of having one fixed identity. She finds unbelievable power in being this complex, self-made, ever-changing person.
So yeah, her whole journey just completely redefines what an origin story can be. She goes from being a victim, a refugee from a dying world, to being the creator of her own reality. It's this incredible story about taking control of your own narrative to overcome trauma. Which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. If you found out your past was a lie, could you turn that lie into your greatest strength?